Hello again. So, once again, I'm going to talk about one of the jobs I had. I'm actually going to stay on point this time instead of going all over the place. So, one of the jobs that I had was as a supported living coach. I actually got that job right before the 2020 sickness really started up. And I left that job in late July, so late January of 2020 till late July 2021. I got lucky to have had that job when I got it, because the other job that I was working, they had to close down because it was the gym that I reception at. I ended up going back when they did open back up, because I personally have a really good relationship with the owner. So that's why I went back, not necessarily because I had to, but because, like, honestly, when you find good people to either work with or work for, you kind of just stay until you genuinely can't. And so obviously it's not my main thing, but yeah. As a supported living coach, I specifically had clientele that were high functioning individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities. So a lot of them were on the spectrum. A few of them had intellectual disabilities, well, not few, like all of them. I don't know why I kind of just doubled up. My brain is real tired. As a supported living coach, I was specifically on site, because we also have off-site supported living coaches. And I was a coach for a complex that was specifically for individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities who were also low income. So it was also income restricted. So, while they were there, the things that I taught them to do were to cook and keep their apartments clean. And I also did meds. So if they needed medication, either to remind them to take them, to observe them taking them, or to prep them and then administer, that was me. I also dealt with any kind of emergencies that happened on site, or what they classified as emergencies, because there were also times where we had to teach them what was and was not an emergency. The main reason why I did take on that job was because of the previous encounter I had with downtown. When I saw the opportunity to understand, or to try and understand how that type of person sees things, I took the opportunity. But also because I was just curious. I was just like, okay, so these are the type of people, or this is the type of person I was dealing with. And because of that, I actually ended up in a good position, because when the 2020 sickness happened, that job was pretty much recession proof, because it's healthcare adjacent. So I was working the entire time that this craziness was happening, but the only downside about it was I did not have the chance to work remote. My position required me to be in person the entire time, and I found out that our demographic are super spreaders, because they truly did not understand, no matter how many times we told them, hey, 6 feet apart, wear a mask, wash your hands, this and that. And again, the complex allows 18 and up. So there was, but they have to meet the criteria of being part of the demographic of high functioning individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And also they had to have it within a certain time in their life. The requirements were for them to have had their disability since they were young. We also had some people with TBIs, which is a traumatic brain injury. We had some of those types of clients. A lot of them had jobs, because again, high functioning. So had jobs, were going to school, were just doing their thing. Some of them were retired or, yeah. But, there were days where it became unbearable, because what I also found out is even someone who is part of a protected demographic, so, you know, someone who is, you know, disabled, I realized that anybody can be an abuser. And I was thinking about how when I was growing up, you know, how when you hear about people with disabilities, they're just like, oh, handle them with care, make sure you don't do anything bad to them. But it's just like, what about the other way around? Because let me tell you, there were days where I accomplished things with my clients that I was so proud of them. Like one of our clients, when they came to us, late 40s, didn't even know how to use the knobs on the stove. Within a couple months, they were starting dinner before I even got to their apartment. And that was such a huge win for everybody, but especially for me, because that meant that I was doing my job amazingly. I'm just like, you didn't even know how to use the knobs, and here you are planning out a meal and making the meal, and it's cooked properly. But then there were our clients who absolutely refused to do any services. So services are what we call programs that we go through in order for our clients to learn what it is they came to learn. The facility itself does not have a minimum or maximum time, as far as I know, because I haven't kept in contact, as far as I know, as to how long a resident can live there. Because the purpose of the complex is not to be permanent housing. It's just for them to learn how to live independently. That, my position at the company that I worked for, that particular location is the middle ground between living with their families and living on their own, or living with a roommate and blase, but teaching them how to be more independent. Even if they were to go back with their families, having had that time to be independent and to learn stuff, it really helps the families out. Because another thing is, a lot of our clients, we were their last stop before they were quote unquote state property of the state, quote unquote. So a lot of them, like, our facility was their last chance. Because when it comes to, as well, having a family member with a disability, long term it gets exhausting. Like at first, when I found out that they dumped them there, I was kind of, I was kind of pissed about it, because I also found out that some of them had been in facilities for most of their life. But when you actually get to know some of them, and when you see their characteristics and their habits and how they treat you when you're literally just doing your job, you get to understand why their families can no longer do it. And so it's one thing to be a professional and having to deal with a client. It's another thing to be a family member having to deal with a family member. And so it gets frustrating. So having gone through what I went through and experienced what I experienced, I understood why they did it. I worked there for a little over a year and a half. There were times where I would get hardcore disrespected just for doing my job. And the last time I was disrespected was the last time. It was the last straw, and I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm literally getting cursed out and having my life threatened just for doing my job. I'm done. No, I'd much rather be broke than spend another second here. And that's what I decided to do. I was full-time. Like I said, I got the job when the pandemic was just starting to be, when the panini was just starting to be a thing. And so it held me down through it, and for that I appreciate it. But because things weren't being run the way they should in terms of the leniency of things that were allowed, especially when it came to certain residents compared to others. It generally was not a fair setup. To this day, I'm still so confused as to why the certain resident I got into it with is still allowed to live there. I speculated about why, and I personally feel like my speculation is the actual reason why, because I'm like, there's no other way. There can literally be no other way as to why this person who has been the same exact trouble. When I say trouble, that is the nicest and easiest way for me to explain the type of trouble this client is. Trouble, and still live there when other residents have been evicted for doing less, honestly. So I'm just like, there's obviously a misbalance of power here, or a misbalance of allowances. So there were times where the job was definitely rewarding and fulfilling, and I was glad to be there. But there were times where I'm just like, I could literally just leave and not come back. And I mean, I ended up doing that. It kind of sucked because I told myself that I was hoping to be there at least 2 years, because even though I was starting to get what I came there for, I want to say an education, because like I said, one of the main driving factors was having dealt with someone who was that type of person, and I wanted to understand the way they kind of process things, to understand why the whole entire situation happened. So one thing for sure I noticed with people, especially on the spectrum, ASD, empathy is something that escapes them pretty hard. Also, when it comes to them being kids, it's a lot easier for you to keep them from going down a path that they will stay on quite forever. Because another thing I found out was, when your relative has a disability, when it's like psychological, and if it's something that they're just gonna have forever, you need to make sure that they're going down the right path, because once they get to a certain age, that is the person they're going to be forever. And I'm not exaggerating. The clients that I had, having found out and realized that because their families were not on them and quote unquote in their asses about not being a certain way, they decided that it was allowable and that's just how they were going to be, and they're not going to change. And it's not just like how neurotypical people can change. People who are neurodivergent cannot change the same way neurotypical people can. So it's just like, literally every single day for 6 months, I had the same conversation, the exact same conversation, no exaggeration, with a client about what it took to get off of services. Each time they would say okay, and then they wouldn't do it, and then they'd complain about getting off the services, and they'd ask, how long before I get off of services? And each time I would tell them, just like, we've had this conversation every single time. I told you what to do and you refused to do it. But then they're like, no, I'm cooperating. I'm just like, no, you're not, because we don't have data saying that you cooperated because you didn't let us observe you, or you did not let us teach you to do this thing. So there's no data for it. So no, you didn't cooperate, and that's why you're still on them. So we had some residents who didn't finish a single service to get off the services, because literally all you have to do with the services is let us watch you do it, let us teach you to do it. All you have to do is check off a certain amount of, like, certain boxes. Like, we had a setup where we had boxes as to how they were supposed to do it. We had residents who got off of services because they did them. Like, it's just like, you don't stay on services forever if you do them and do them well. We had a resident who, not only did they get off of on-site services, they got off of off-site services. Off-site services teaches them like how to get a job, how to pay bills, doctor's appointments, setting up like internet and stuff, just shopping for groceries and all that. Like it teaches them outside stuff. If I were to go over every single thing that happened within the year, a little over a year and a half time span, this video would be so long. But also for legal reasons, there are also things I can't say just because it does have to do with certain people's medical status and certain things that happen. It's just like, I don't want, if someone were to see this, to have something to take action against me, because that's just how things work. But also it's even if I don't work for that company anymore, I did still sign for HIPAA, and for that I'm just like, I will respect it even if I don't work there anymore. So yeah, being a supported living coach overall, I will say it takes a special type of person. I was able to hang on for longer only because it came to me not wanting someone else to suffer. But I notice that as a person, I will hang on to something too long because I think, like, I give myself too much importance on things. It's just like, people, jobs, whatever. I think it's a need to feel needed. But as I've gotten older, I've realized I'm just like, no one besides my immediate family actually needs me. And having had no choice but to go through certain things on my own because the people at the time I unintentionally drove away from me, I realized that I actually don't need anyone else. Does that mean that I wouldn't want like friends and family and building something for myself? No. But ultimately I had to learn through the hard way that no one really needs me and I don't need anybody else, and I shouldn't be dependent on people. And but obviously I'm not one to like push people aside either. Like, I'm like, if you're my friend and I love you, I'm gonna be there for you, and I'm gonna do my best to help your life be easier. And anything I ever do is never intentionally to make things more difficult. And it really helped to put into consideration, because like I said, the clients that we had, not all of them, it was their last stop, but for a good majority of our clients, we were their last stop before they had nowhere else but the state to go. And once the state has them, that's it. There's nothing else to be done. I made some really good friends out of a couple coworkers. Other coworkers, it was kind of just like, dang, they really need people here. Obviously everyone's going through their own thing, so I'm just like, well, what's done is done. They were here, they were gone. Also because of the way that place was being run, it's still a revolving door of a facility. They can't really keep anyone long term, just because, again, it's being run pretty negligently. Not in terms of taking care of the clients, but in terms of respect for the workers. The workers definitely deserve better. Even with the pay raise, there's still a revolving door. I'm kind of tired, and that's all I really have to say about it. It was overall, like, if you ever decide to be a supported living coach, don't burn yourself out. I was burning the candle at both ends, because even as a worker, I will go above and beyond. Even as a person, I will go above and beyond if I think it's worth it. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you.